What is up, guys? It's Verns, back here again with another Supercoach video. This time it is the Round 8 review, but before we jump into that, a few things I want to go over. First of all, I will be doing a podcast with Supercoach Hub, so you can find them on YouTube, just searching Supercoach Hub. They've been doing some great NBL content all season, and we will be doing a podcast next Tuesday. We plan on getting that organized, and then hopefully out for you late next week. Now, with this, NBL does have a week off, so there aren't going to be any games next week. This coming weekend. So hopefully next week, when the content's a little dried up, we can do some trade talk and whatnot, and just go over, I guess, the coming round before we head into round 9. So really excited to do that. If you don't already, follow along on my Twitter, which will be in the description down below, where I will obviously post that when it does come out, or just go over to their YouTube channel and subscribe to them. Either way, you should be getting that content, as I mentioned, next week. The next thing I want to go over is, if you have watched DR's latest video for the BBL, then you will know that he is going to be doing a podcast with me, which is going to be really sick. I'm very excited for that one. When we originally talked about it, I said after round 9 that we would maybe look at doing that, because we wanted to do a bit of a mid-season review. Saying that, I once again didn't realize we are going to have a week off NBL, which kind of sucks, pushes that back a little bit longer than expected, because I was really excited to be getting into that one with him. But yeah, there are two things to be looking forward to into the future, guys, so really excited for both of those, and I hope that you guys will enjoy those when they come out. Hey guys, sorry, something I just want to get in real quick. I know I'm just going to have a little snippet here in the middle of the video. If you do leave comments down below, I'll actually look at answering those in the Supercoach Hub podcast. So I won't actually be answering them for once this week. Usually I always like them and I answer them, and I know you guys know that I get to all the comments that are left there, but leave your comments down below, leave your questions down below. I will like them to tell you that I have seen them, but I will actually look at answering them on the Supercoach Hub podcast when we get together to do that next week. So if you guys want to jump in, leave them down below and then jump onto that podcast next week and get your answers there, that would be awesome. So now getting into this week's Supercoach, oh my goodness. I really did need to take some time off looking at Supercoach because I was so angry at it. I know it doesn't look like it, but I don't know, sometimes I just get in front of the camera and I love making these videos and I can't help but be positive, but I was not a happy boy this weekend at all. And honestly, if it wasn't for, I believe it's Kobe's play, they did actually comment on my last YouTube video saying, please do a video. Thank you for that, honestly, because, it was a little bit of motivation I needed to just get up and get this done, because knowing that we had the week off now, I was like, oh man, it doesn't really matter when I get it off. We've got plenty of time until the coming games. I kind of lost motivation to do the round review this week because it just didn't go well. So with that comment that he put out, I did actually look at it and went, you know what? Let's get it done. Let's get up, let's get a shower in, and let's get this recorded. So thank you for that, because you did generally help me get this video started right now. But if we do look at the round to see how we went, 337 points. We went down 251 places to 309. Whew. Considering we're sitting around that 50 mark, to go down to 309, it's just so painful. And honestly, a lot of things went wrong in this round. A lot of very, very small things, just in the sense of the 50-50 calls I made. If you did watch last week's video, you know at the end of the video when I was talking about captains and I looked at Lamb and I'm like, oh man, I want to do Lamb so bad, but that clearly can't be the play. I should have just done it. It was the same philosophy I had with Doolittle originally, 3 weeks ago, when I was like, oh, I want him so bad, but he's clearly not the play. Every time I sit there and think they're not the play, they're the play. And that was just a bit frustrating that getting Lamb wrong didn't matter too much. What hurt was putting the captaincy on Pinder. So yes, we will jump into it and see the team right there. For those that, once again, don't follow on my Twitter, you wouldn't have seen the trades I decided to make. But if you did see it at the end of the video, you know that originally I was sitting there being like, oh yeah, Lamb captain would be great. I had Doolittle sitting in my team. And then I started talking about the captaincy options, and I was like, man, Doyle and Crawford, Tasmania have great matchups. And then that's when I realized Marcus Lee has great matchups, and decided to switch from Doolittle to Lee. And sort of in a 2-minute span at the end of my video, I said, don't do Lamb captain. Well, I didn't say don't do it. I said I want to do Lamb captain, but decided not to do it. And then I decided to change Doolittle to Lee. Because originally I'd always planned on going with Doolittle until I did that video. And I kind of just like convinced myself in the video at the time, like, oh man, now Lee will be really cool here. And we went for Lee. And overall, going Captain Lamb and bringing in Doolittle over Lee would have been a total of 97 points difference. Just for retrospect, that would still make me around rank 70. So we threw it all away with those two decisions at the end of the last video. And that's pretty frustrating, to be honest, that kind of happened. Honestly, the Lee thing I think is annoying in the sense that I don't think the logic behind it was incorrect. And I think to a degree that was shown with Magne that I had the right idea, just the wrong center. Because we talk about New Zealand giving up big center points, and look, Lee dropped a 20, which isn't the end of the world, and if he got 2 20s, I would have been fine with that, but Magne comes out with a 50. Yes, that was unbelievable. He got it in 16 minutes of game time, unbelievable stat padding that he had done, but saying that it took away from a lot more Lee minutes than I thought. He only played like 17, which considering he was usually playing low 20s-ish because of foul trouble, more or less, to see him drop all the way to 17, I think I underestimated how much Magne was going to affect him. And I think the other thing that's frustrating about this is Lee was actually really good in this game. He was a good player, just not a great Supercoach player. He played at the top of the key a lot of the time, and he actually facilitated the ball. They went through him with the ball. He got the ball a lot of the time at that free throw line, kicked it out to a corner, wide open 3. In the first quarter alone, I saw him do this, I think, 4 times before Lamb finally hit the 4th. So they missed 3 open 3s after he's made passes, and then Lamb finally hits one. So they're points that they're just missing, that Lee's missing because his team ain't hitting knockdown 3s, wide open 3s, which is a bit unfortunate there. There was also a moment where I swear he blocked Parker Jackson Cartwright, and for some reason they called a foul, and I don't know where that foul came from, but apparently they called it. And look, everyone owns PJC, so it doesn't really matter what points he gets unless he's your captain, but nobody owned Lee. So 3 extra points on Lee would have been quite nice. So look, game 1, I feel like he left some points begging, which was a bit unfortunate. But then game 2, it was a very different thing with Cairns. I feel like Cairns this week completely adjusted what they were doing because they shut down Pinder and they didn't let Taz get many points on their centers either, which previously Cairns have been giving up massive center points. And it might have been one of those things where they'd gone back, they aren't doing the greatest on the season overall, and they sort of addressed the issue. They looked at it and they went, we're letting centers do too much. We need a lockdown on these centers. We need to be more physical for them. We need to be more accountable to them. I don't know if it was one of those things as to why they came in with a different game plan this week to actually shut down centers, because they kept Pinder the 10 and Lee to 7. And Magne only got 19 himself. So, they really shut down centers this week, and it was kind of crazy to see. And as I said, that must have been maybe a game plan thing that they went back with, saying that Pinder was obviously a revenge game for them because he did used to play for them. And sometimes this happens with the revenge games. You want Pinder to come out of a big game against his old club, but at the same time, his old club want to shut him down, and they know all his tricks. So maybe Pinder as the captain option, if I maybe considered that a bit more, hindsight, maybe he wasn't the option that I thought he was, but maybe just because of the game 1 where they shut down Pinder, they went, man, that was actually really good. Let's bring that again next game into Tasmania, and then they shut down the centers again. And yeah, I don't know if that was something that Cairns was specifically working on, but it was very night and day from their last few weeks because they have given up a lot of center points, and then this week they shut down centers, and it was very painful for us because we were playing around the trend that they give up points to centers, not that they shut them down. So very frustrating there. And then Doolittle comes out and drops 62 as well. Goddamn, Doolittle's actually so good. He's hitting these 3s all of a sudden. He looks way more confident than when he first came into this. He's willing to shoot the ball. He's got a great mid-range J. He's very strong under the ring. He's hitting these 3s. Yes, he's no longer relevant to Supercoach because Perth's run is sort of garbage going forward. But it's very frustrating that, as we know, 3 weeks ago we wanted him. Last week could have been a consideration. This week we were going to get him. And we just get torched by him because we didn't bring him in. And it's just very frustrating in that retrospect that, I don't know, I guess I got baited by a good fixture by Lee. But you know what? We played for a little bit of fun here. It was an interesting pod pick. I mean, two things I guess I can look at here. First of all, with Doolittle is I am one of those people that it's like, because I missed Doolittle originally, I didn't want to get on him later because then that's me sort of conceding that I made the wrong pick. And we know I did, and I really should have just conceded and given up Doolittle. I think me getting baited towards Lee, I say baited towards Lee. I think the reason I've made that decision to go towards Lee, as much as when I talked about in my video Doolittle being the right pick and then got convinced because of the schedule, I think I was looking for reasons to get off Doolittle because I didn't want to concede that Doolittle was the right pick and I messed up. If I didn't pick Doolittle and he doesn't have a good week and Pinder goes off as the captaincy, maybe I make up those points that he lost in the first 2 weeks, and all of a sudden I can be like, hey, you know what, Pinder was actually the right play, it's all good. And I think maybe I was looking at it that way and trying to claw back some points that I'd lost and not conceding defeat, but all I ended up doing was doubling down that I made the wrong play. And just very frustrating that, honestly, just Pinder really sucked this weekend. Like, oh man, as I said, he got shut down in the Tasmanian game, but I think on top of it, got shut down in the Cairns game, but I think on top of it, it's like, Pinder's first of all, he's getting blocked a fair bit, I feel, but he's missing these drives he's making. He's not getting the rebounds that he wants. He's not getting involved. And it might be one of those things where I do see him boxing out the centers a lot and then Doolittle picking it up. And it might also be the fact that the rise of Doolittle has sort of pushed Pinder out. But Lee and Pinder did fall into the same sort of category where, as I mentioned, Lee does a lot of good other stuff where he would box out the center, Pinder would box out the center, and in game one you saw Doyle pick up a ton of rebounds because Lee's locked down the center and basically given anyone else a free rebound. And I do think Pinder was doing that a little bit in his games too, where he was trying to get the box out on the center to make sure Doolittle could get rebounds. And as I said, it's not bad, but like it's good basketball, but it's just not good Supercoach. And just a bit frustrating that was sort of happening to our players. They lost so much money this week as well, and we actually went backwards in the money scheme of things, which really hurt. So yeah, not a good week from their sort of point of view. Matty Yang, another center that just didn't have a good week either. He dropped 10 and then 7, and oh my goodness, so frustrating in his second game where he like spins Froling, gets past him, has a wide open layup. I think was shocked that he got a wide open layup at the start of this game and just missed the layup. Like literally zero defense. He could have just slammed it down and he chose to lay it up. And I think that's because he was expecting Froling to be moving with him. But Froling just sort of went, damn, he's beat me. Oh well. Like he just sort of stopped. And Matt Niang just spins to the ring and misses a wide open layup. And I was like, oh, my boy, why? But yeah, he didn't come out with a good game either. He was so good the last few weeks for New Zealand. And I think once again what he was doing wasn't the worst thing. But Pinu got a lot more court time this week, which hurt Matty Yang, but yeah, he just also wasn't as good this week, fortunately, making turnovers and whatnot. So, look, our centers overall went poorly. I guess Wonder Boy over here is also a center, but you know what? I'll talk about him in a minute. I'm probably not going to go through the rounds game by game because I kind of just want to get this out of the way ASAP. But look, Lamb popped off in game one. He hit, 6 out of 10 threes, I think it was. Maybe that was last week that he did that. He was so good this week, hitting a lot of threes, hitting a lot of points, and he's really the go-to guy for New Zealand. Like, when they want a bucket, they try and force it through Lamb. Like, Lamb has the license to shoot, drive, do anything he wants at that ball to keep them in it. And, yeah, very surprising New Zealand beat Tasmania here at Tas, but, yeah, Lamb was truly unstoppable in this game, so I guess not really surprising because he was so good. PJC wasn't a bad one either. He did really well, and if you had the captaincy on him, you would have been pretty happy. This is actually something I was talking to Corey Blackledge with. He was messaging me on Twitter, and we're having a bit of a talk about it. For those that obviously watch DR, it is Corey's the lady man, Blackledge. But we were talking about it. I actually was talking to him, and I honestly convinced myself about PJC. And then I made the comment that I was like, you know what? I've already done my tweet. I've committed to Pinder. I'm sticking to it. And he's obviously just like, fair enough. You do you. But I really wish that I did do that PJC like we talked about, because that would have saved us, 32 points and probably a lot of ranking positions. So very unfortunate. PJC, yeah, honestly, a good week from him too. Honestly, New Zealand lose to Illawarra after being Tasmania. Like, what is that? And also, if you guys watch this New Zealand Illawarra game, you look how low scoring this is. And this isn't because their defense was good. This was a scrappy, terrible game of basketball where neither team could shoot the ball. There wasn't good defense. It was just awful, awful offense from both teams, and this was a disgusting game to watch. Watching it was painful, honestly. It was painful, but it was scrappy. There was turnovers everywhere. People weren't scoring. Yeah, no, it wasn't pretty. Very night and day from this first game when New Zealand were actually really, really good. But yeah, PJC and Lamb, both these games really good. As I mentioned, Lamb, they go through whenever they need a bucket. Lamb shot a lot in this game as well, but couldn't quite reciprocate what he did in the first game. He really thought he was still the Lamb of this first game. He thought anything he touched was gold, but it wasn't the case. He wasn't making the buckets. But he still made buckets, but not in that first half. He was shooting a lot and not scoring. PJC played some really good ball in both these games. 31 you're pretty happy with if he's putting that out. But yeah, Lamb's 91's insane. And for those that had the captain on him, just crazy rewarded. And something, once again, we sat there and we wanted to do and just decided not to. But Perth also end up with their 5th win in a row, which is a really funny stat because I think the stat was last year Perth beat Melbourne, I think it was Tasmania, Cairns, and maybe Illawarra, it might have been, but might have been Adelaide actually. So they beat 4 teams in a row last year. This year they beat all those 4 teams in a row again, and last year they came up against Brisbane in Game 5 and their run was stopped. This time they came up against Brisbane in Game 5 and the run continues. Saying that's kind of on Brisbane though. They got massively up in this game and once again they just sort of let the game fall away. It was really disappointing from a Brisbane point of view that they just lost that game when they really shouldn't have. Speaking of a Brisbane point of view, Sobey, 15 points. Look, he's a yo-yo. We know he's a yo-yo. We know this is going to happen. And he was on our bench, so we can sort of get over this. Preferably when he's on our field, hopefully he's putting it together a bit more. But look, we're keeping him for the double this week, and then Sobey's probably out of the team. Probably not going to see him for the rest of the season. And Bannon also put together a good game, something we're going to be holding on to for this week. And honestly, he's just been good enough that we can probably hold him a little bit longer because after the round 9, we do have the 3 New Zealand players and the 2 Brisbane players to be moving on. So Bannon's probably going to be one of the ones I hold on to just because he's been pretty consistent in his scoring. Reviewing some of these games, it's hard to remember everything that even happened in these games, especially when I was so angry at Pinder. It was hard to focus on anything that wasn't Pinder in these games. I was definitely watching him through this game so much, and he got fouled out, did he, at the end? I feel like he got fouled out. I was a little bit annoyed that he just... What ended up happening? I feel like he definitely got fouled out at the end of this game, which was unfortunate. The other thing I actually wanted to say, too, regarding Lee was... at the end of these games, Magnay ended up jumping on the court and Lee didn't play at all. It was 5 minutes left in the game, close game, and Lee was sitting on the bench and Magnay was playing those crucial minutes, which was super painful because it just shows that clearly Magnay is higher on the pecking order for them than Lee, which I think we always knew, but I thought Magnay was going to be eased in a little bit more than what he was, and I still think Lee's a good center, so I thought he would still put out good numbers against these teams. And as I said, I didn't expect his minutes to drop as much as they did, unfortunately. I guess we'll look at our Cairns boys here. But Cairns, over this week, lose 2 games that were pretty close and 2 within their grasp. Wonder Boy's really disappeared. And I think that's because, as I mentioned, he's a playmaking center, that he wants the ball at the top. He wants to make these passes. And I always said that he had a good mid-range J, but he hasn't been making the mid-range J, which is annoying. Also with Armstrong back there, McCall, who wants to handle the ball, and then they also have Miller. They don't need his playmaking. They don't need him for a playmaker. They need him for a center. So because of that, he's not doing what he was doing in these earlier games, which is a little bit painful. But on top of it, he's just not hitting the shots that he was. He's shooting a lot of threes. In this Tasmanian game, he started the game off shooting a lot of threes and not hitting them, and then spending a lot of time on the bench. And I do think Gak and Menenga got a lot more time in this Tasmania game, which also hurt him. But I think just his shooting being pretty poor, Ford obviously didn't want to be running him with how he was performing. Armstrong's absolute gold for his price. If you don't have Armstrong still, I still recommend getting on him because he's just worth so much for his price. And Quall, actually, they're still going through Quall a lot. I feel like the starting 5 that they're sort of running, they're running Armstrong, Miller, McCall, Quall, and Wonderboy. So, look, if Wonderboy can maybe neaten things up a bit, get a bit more consistent with these Js, try and, I guess, do a bit more center stuff rather than playmaking stuff, which, look, isn't really his gameplay. Maybe he can stay on the floor a bit more, get us a few more Supercoach points. Qual, they still want to get the ball in his hand, and they still want him to be scoring, which is super nice because he was really good, honestly, in these games. Not actually as many Supercoach points as I expected, but I think he only had 15 in Game 1, so yeah, the 22 in Game 2 makes sense. Hopefully you all aren't listening to that plane coming past. But look, we're going to wrap up, I guess, that sort of part of this review going over last week, just because I don't want to drag this on forever like I always do. We're going to look at the following week. Now, as I mentioned, we do have a week off, which sucks. Everyone gets a break. We get to relax. Great. I think this one should be pretty straightforward, but New Zealand into Adelaide and Southeast Melbourne. Actually, something I did want to mention about Adelaide last week. They gave up 45 points to Source. What's annoying about that is Pinder dropped 50 on them, and we knew that they gave up big points. And Pinder dropped 50 on them last time. And then this time into Adelaide, we were hoping for a big game again, and they really... And Pinder just didn't do it. He just kind of sucked the last time they played him. They kind of shut him out a bit. But then Williams comes out and drops 45. So it tells me that it wasn't really Adelaide doing anything different, because Humphrey is someone that gives up big Supercoach points. Pinder just sucked, is what I'm hearing last time they played Adelaide. And that just speaks to his form and his Supercoach that we're seeing now. But going into this week, I think New Zealand have a really good matchups here, Southeast Melbourne and Adelaide, so I think they will be really good for the captaincy look. Cairns going into Brisbane and Melbourne, not really the matchups I think we want. Brisbane getting Cairns and Illawarra isn't too bad themselves, and then Adelaide going into Tas and New Zealand isn't too bad because New Zealand haven't been great, but Tas isn't really the best matchup. So they're the four teams that we're looking at here. First of all, we're going to get into our trades regarding that. So we want to be focusing New Zealand Cairns players or Brisbane and Adelaide players. The only problem with Brisbane Adelaide is that it's just a 1 week rental with those kind of players, saying that it's New Zealand's last game in the run as well. So it's kind of their last game, which, it's their sort of a 1 week rental too if we bring them in. So that doesn't really help either. So, I mean, the way I'm looking at this is bringing in a Brisbane or Adelaide player is basically the same as bringing in a Sydney player, a South Melbourne player, a Tas player. Over the next 4 weeks, they're going to play 2 doubles. Over the next 4 weeks, Sydney, South Melbourne, Tasmania, they're all going to play 2 doubles. So it's basically the equivalent of bringing in one of those players. And for anyone that did watch this Sydney game, obviously Sydney ended up losing, and Jalen Adam was nowhere to be seen in this game. He just did not show up. Valentine was actually really good in this game, and the Valentine that we thought we were getting when we started the season. And then Boland also really good. Something that we've always talked about. I haven't really talked about it too much, but something that we know in the community for Supercoach is that Hunter and Boland have been really yin-yang with their scoring. One of them goes off, and then the other one doesn't perform so well. But Hunter's out. I don't know for how long. I will have to look at that, and a week off may make that sooner than expected. But if Boland's their main center, I mean, he's kind of a really nice-looking pick. So something to consider. But look, with these players, all of these guys are on the double again next week except for Lee and Pinder. We knew Lee was a 1 week rental. It just didn't work out. And a bit unfortunate there. Pinder, he is on my never again list. I know in this kind of game, there's not a lot of centers to choose from. And you can't really go adding someone to our never again list. He's on it. I do not care. Unless he does something miraculous, he has been not good Supercoach wise. He lost us a lot of points over these last 3 weeks. I mean, that's the biggest thing. Considering compare Pinder to Doolittle. My entire reason of getting Pinder over Doolittle is we thought that we were going to get much more points out of Pinder, even if Doolittle made more money in the meantime. But no, we got more points out of Doolittle, you would have. Doolittle outscored him by 6 in the first week. They drew in the second round, and then this round he's outscored him by 33, I think it is. So basically 40 extra points if you picked up Doolittle, plus Doolittle made 100k, Pinder lost 50k, so 150k swing on top of it. So, you know what? No, Pinder's on the never again list. I do not want to see him in my team for at least the rest of the season. I mean, I want to say next season too, but I might give him a little bit. We'll find that out next season. That's a next season problem. But right now he is gone from my list. And the players I do want to be looking at, so center-wise, now as I mentioned, I do like Boland, And Magne ends up with a great break-even here. So he's gained 30k, yeah, whatever, but his break-even is now minus 18. And as I mentioned, they technically have 2 doubles in a row coming up. So they'll play 2 singles and then they have 2 doubles. So if we get on him now with a good break-even and then we have him for his 2 doubles, that's pretty good in my opinion. And he could be someone that can just sit on the bench. It's not really a big deal in that retrospect. He's also got the forward center DPP, which is very nice as well. So, look, a lot of teams have already picked him up this week because of the break-even. As I said, the other one I'm going to compare him to is Boland, who's more expensive, also has a really good break-even. I think it's 2. And they will be playing a single this week as well, but a double the week after. So, someone that we also would like to get on because of that good break-even. We wait a week on him. He's going to jump up a bit in cash, which is unfortunate. But as I said, I need to check where Hunter is in this. So we have Hunter here. Okay, he's expected to be back but by the next game. So maybe Boland isn't quite what we want him to be. So in this case, we're going to be picking up Magne for now. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use some DPP to flip Qual up. Because a player that honestly... Wait, what? Oh, we don't want center. That honestly exploded this week. I mean, look, McCall and Miller both had great games at the end of the day. But I do think, Miller put down a 40-point game, 28-point game. They're 2 really good. And he's been a superstar. Honestly, he does look like someone that's not going to be affected by the whole team being back because they want the ball in his hand. And as we know, Cans just have such a good run. Getting him in right now is just super important. For anyone that had held him, it really hurt, but at least he rewarded you this week with a great game. And honestly, I think I'm just going to keep Selby on the bench myself personally. I don't know. He's such a yin-yang that I feel a lot more confident in Parker, Jackson, Cartwright, and Miller to put out a good consistent score over the 2 games than Selby, who might have 1 big game. He might have 2 big games, but he could just as easily have 2 down games. So, look, that's what we're looking at this stage. I think we're going to put the captaincy on Lamb because of his form recently. He has been looking very good, and as I mentioned, they want the ball going through him, which is very nice. I am going to move Magne with Wonder Boy there, and I think I'll put Bannon on field over Qual. Yeah, that seems perfectly reasonable. Bannon's been pretty good for 20 plus, so I feel pretty confident in him. Yeah, team I think doesn't look too bad this way. And then next week we'll have Sydney players that maybe we can jump on. And as I mentioned, Sydney might have a double, but then they have a single, then another double. So if you're going to jump on them, you're probably going to hold them for a little bit. Next round we're going to be looking at moving on these Brisbane and New Zealand players. And then the week after that, we can probably move them on again towards the Tasmanian or South Melbourne players. But yeah, I guess that's the round review, guys. As I said, everything, honestly, we really threw the season down the toilet this round, which was a bit unfortunate. But you know what? At least it's going to make climbing a little bit easier. So if we can hopefully put together some better games moving forward, definitely took that back step. Definitely took a back step with money as well. So I've made it much harder to finish in the top 100 this season. But you know what? I mean, I don't know. It is what it is, and we will get over it. Anyway, for everyone, make sure that you do tune into, as I mentioned, that Supercoach Hub video that will be coming out next week, and when I do join DR on the podcast to go through a mid-season review. So anyway, once again, thank you anyone for tuning in to the videos until the end. I really appreciate those that do, and I will catch you for the next one. Peace. Later.